In the distant future, on a planet known as Therathar, alien scientists and explorers were fascinated by the mysteries of the universe. Sarathar was a world that had seen many civilizations rise and fall, but its inhabitants, the Xarathians, had one goal in mind: to understand the nature of life itself. They had explored countless planets, studying various forms of life, but nothing prepared them for their discovery about Earth and its inhabitants, the humans. The Xarathians were an advanced species, their technology far beyond anything that Earth had ever dreamed of. Their ships could travel faster than light, their computers were conscious and could process billions of data points in a single second, and their biological science was years ahead of what any Earth scientist could comprehend. They had encountered countless species across the galaxy, each with unique ways of surviving in their environments, but they had never encountered a species like humans. It all started when one of the Xarathian exploration teams, led by Dr. Geron, landed on Earth for the first time. They had been studying the planet from afar for some time, fascinated by its diverse ecosystems and the strange, primitive creatures that called it home. However, it was the human species that particularly intrigued them. The Xarathians had never understood how a creature as fragile as a human could thrive in such an oxygen-rich environment. Dr. Geron, a brilliant scientist, and his team set out to answer this question. They began by studying Earth's atmosphere. They analyzed the air, the plants, the oxygen levels, and even the chemical composition of the planet's atmosphere. To the Xarathians' amazement, they found that Earth's oxygen levels were incredibly high compared to other planets they had encountered. Most planets in the galaxy had low levels of oxygen or none at all. Oxygen was a rare and precious resource across the universe, so the Xarathians couldn't understand how a species like humans could breathe it in and survive without causing harm to themselves. The Xarathian team was baffled. They knew that oxygen was essential for life, but they also understood that it could be deadly in high concentrations. It was toxic to most life forms in the galaxy. On Xarathar, for example, their species thrived in a nitrogen-based atmosphere, where oxygen was almost non-existent. They could not imagine how humans could breathe air that was 21% oxygen without their bodies being destroyed by it. "We need to understand this," Dr. Geron said as he looked at his team, his eyes wide with astonishment. "These humans, their bodies, they're able to function in an environment that should be lethal. It's almost like they're adapted to it." The Xarathian scientists were stumped. They had run all sorts of tests on the human DNA, analyzed their biology, and examined their respiratory systems. The results were even more confusing. Humans had lungs that could process oxygen at an extraordinary rate, far better than the creatures they had encountered on other planets. In fact, it seemed that humans were designed in some way to thrive in the very atmosphere that could kill most life forms. As Dr. Geron pondered this, he called for a meeting with his superior, High Commander Kalrith, back on their home planet of Zarathar. "Commander, we need to discuss this. These humans, there's something we've never seen before. We need more time to study them," Dr. Geron urged. Kalrith listened patiently, but with concern. "Geron, I understand your fascination, but we need results. The Council of Xarathians expects answers, not endless questions. We cannot afford to waste time on this insignificant species. The humans are primitive and irrelevant to our plans. But Commander, that's the point. They're not like any species we've encountered. Their ability to survive in such an environment, it defies logic." Geron insisted, feeling a sense of urgency. Reluctantly, Kalrith agreed to send another team to Earth. He authorized more resources to be devoted to studying the humans. The Xarathian scientists returned to Earth, conducting experiments, observing human behavior, and diving deeper into understanding the biology of these remarkable creatures. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans were unaware of the alien interest in their species. They went about their daily lives, breathing in the oxygen-rich air that had always been a part of their existence. They had no idea that their ability to breathe oxygen was so extraordinary. To them, it was simply a part of life, but the Xarathians were about to learn something that would change everything. The more the Xarathians studied the human respiratory system, the more they marveled at it. They discovered that humans had an incredibly efficient method of utilizing oxygen in their bodies, far more advanced than any species they had encountered before. The key lay in the way humans' blood vessels and capillaries absorbed and transported oxygen to their cells. In a surprising revelation, Dr. Jaron and his team discovered that human bodies had evolved a unique enzyme that allowed them to metabolize oxygen in a way no other species could. This enzyme made it possible for them to breathe in the high concentrations of oxygen present in Earth's atmosphere without it being harmful. The enzyme was unlike anything the Xeratheans had ever seen. It was a miracle of evolution, a gift that allowed humans to survive and thrive in an environment that should have been hostile. Dr. Jaron was astounded by the findings. This is impossible. The biological mechanisms in these creatures' bodies are beyond comprehension. They breathe oxygen the way we breathe nitrogen. How is this possible? The Xeratheans could not understand how such a primitive species had evolved to this degree of perfection. They realized that humans had developed a resilience to their environment that surpassed anything they had witnessed before. This resilience gave them an edge over every other species in the galaxy. It was clear to the Xeratheans that humans were more than just a primitive life form. They were survivors capable of adapting to nearly any environment. The more the Xeratheans observed, the more they realized that humans have a unique strength and ability to thrive where others would fail. Their resilience was not just in their ability to breathe oxygen, but in their ability to survive against all odds. Back on Xerathar, the scientists sent their report to the High Council. They could no longer dismiss the humans as insignificant. They had discovered something truly remarkable. Humans were the ultimate survivors. The Xeratheans were left in awe, realizing that perhaps for the first time in their history, they had encountered a species more resilient and adaptable than their own. The Xerathean Council debated their findings for days. While some advocated for studying humans further, others argued that the humans could pose a threat in the future. But one thing was clear. The Xeratheans had underestimated humanity. They had thought of humans as nothing more than another species to study, but now they knew better. Humans were capable of more than just surviving, they could thrive. And so the Xeratheans left Earth, not with answers, but with a profound respect for the species they once considered primitive. Humans had something no other species in the galaxy had: the ability to breathe oxygen and live in an environment that should have been impossible for them. The Xeratheans were left to wonder, how had humans evolved to do this? What other secrets did they hold? In the end, the answer was clear. Humans were not just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. And the Xeratheans would never forget the lesson they had learned. Never underestimate the power of a species that could breathe oxygen in an unforgiving world.